What's up, fuck faces? This is Ricky Miranda's The Ripple Effect Podcast. We are back. It's been a while since the last podcast. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited that this is episode 40. A year ago, I started this journey. I decided to come up with this crazy idea of starting a podcast, basically only because I was so into them and I was really enjoying just the conversation and interesting people. I figured, why not give it a try? You know, you only live once. I guess chase your dreams and attempt or give your best attempt to do the things that you think are going to fulfill you and make you happy and give you some purpose in life. So that was one of the reasons I started this podcast, and I'm glad that a year later I've been lucky enough to have as many awesome guests as I had. I mean, when I first started inviting people on the show, they had no reason to come on this show. Really, I had no resume. I wasn't famous for any other reason, unlike many other podcasters that have other fields that they were in and kind of made a name for themselves. So, I mean, all those early guests, they were kind of crazy to come on a random dude who just emailed them's podcast. And but I'm happy for them, or happy for my wait, what the fuck am I trying to say? I'm excited that they did, and I'm glad that they did come on my podcast. And I could have easily been a guy who did a couple episodes and decide I don't have time or don't want to do it anymore, and they could have just wasted their time, you know. So it is pretty amazing to have people out there like, you know, Douglas Ruskoff, Jason Burmez, James Corbett, Guy Evans, all these early Daniele Bignelli, all these early episodes that, you know, they came on, didn't know anything about me, didn't know anything about the show, didn't know really, I mean, I didn't know anything about the show. I was still figuring it out myself. So it was for them to come on and be passionate about just having conversation and about their work, and be passionate about just the topics and stuff like that. I think that's awesome. So I can't thank them enough. Today we have Adam Scorgie, who is one of my favorite guests just because he's so easy to talk to, and he makes you feel like you're at a bar having a drink, bullshitting about whatever, which is kind of the feel I'm trying to get with this podcast. So I'm super excited about this episode. His new movie, The Culture High, has some serious star power. I mean, you have Be Real from Cypress Hill, you have Snoop Dogg, Cara Santa Maria, you have Ana, and I always mess up his name, Cenk from the Young Turks, and so he has tons of really awesome guests on there, and a bunch of doctors and really world famous people that you'll probably recognize their face like I do, but don't necessarily know their names. And I think that the movie's going to do really well. I was kind of surprised when he was talking about having struggling to get in certain film festivals, because I'm just like, really, with that star power and with the height of like people realizing that the war on drugs is bullshit. I mean, with Dr. Sanjay Gupta basically coming out, who's a world famous doctor, and CNN, you know, a mainstream media guy who came out and said, hey, we've been lied to about the medical benefits of cannabis and all this stuff, and just people realizing that minimum sentencing, you know, you're basically locking up nonviolent criminals and filling our prisons up with nonviolent criminals for a little marijuana, but yet you can, you know, you're giving out pills in the prisons like it's candy. You know, I know some, plenty of people who've retired from being prison officers, and they've said, hey, you just say that, hey, you're a little depressed, you're a little this, you're a little that, and they'll just give you pharmaceuticals like it's nothing. So it just, you know, obviously, like most things, if you fall the rabbit hole, you know, you'll find that it all leads to money. Somebody's profiting and somebody's making money off it, and that usually what ends up becoming a domino effect of corruption and all this other stuff. So, but with that said, also, new song, Theory 6. I released a song called War for Peace, and it's actually, if it sounds like the old song Let Go, because it kind of is. It started off as Let Go, felt like I didn't get the most potential out of that song, out of those beats, out of just that whole concept I had for that song, and I redid it, and it's very different, and that's why I had to give it a different title. It's out as on YouTube. You can listen to it. I'll put it at the end of this podcast, but the full, or the, you know, good quality, full stereo, you know, good quality version isn't downloadable on iTunes and Amazon and stuff yet. It takes a little bit before it goes through the whole process, and I set it all up and release it on all the platforms and stuff like that. So give it a little bit of time, but if you follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff, you'll be the first to know when you can download it. And definitely check out the Theory 6 stuff, because it's not that much money to buy a song, and it helps support the podcast. It's only 99 cents, and I get whatever 70 cents of it or whatever, and so I would really appreciate it if people do that and keep sharing and talking about podcasting. And anybody else who also is thinking about podcasting, do it. It's fulfilling. It's awesome. You get to talk to people that you never thought you'd be able to meet. So continue doing it. And thanks again, guys. It's been a year, and it's been a crazy fucking journey, and I hope to have another crazy fucking journey and a year from now, and I hope to have only more guests, because now that I actually have a somewhat of a resume and a good platform, and people who are credible on, who people can look at my past guest list and say, hey, you know what, this guy's been on, yeah, maybe I'll do this show, so I think it'll only get it, and it only has gotten easier to book people, so I think it'll only continue to get easier as my platform builds a little bit, and hopefully I can continue to do it, and once work slows down, I'll be whipping these things out like crazy, and like this winter, like I did last winter. So look forward to that, and I have a bunch of awesome guests that have already agreed to be on, but it just schedules are colliding, and once work slows down, I know I'll be able to just be like, hey, you tell me when you can do it, let's do it, and I can my schedule will be a lot more flexible. So until the next show, I'll see you guys, and like I said, I really appreciate it, and enjoy the podcast, enjoy the show, and I will put a trailer of his movie on the if you go to YouTube and you go to our YouTube channel, RV36, which has all the video episodes of the podcast, I'll have a link in the show descriptions to the trailer. So check it out. It's really, the trailer really captures you, and it's just, I think it's really going to be a cool movie. And he talks about this whole tug thing where you can bring the movie to a local theater near you, which is also a really cool thing. So hope you enjoy the show, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Believe in the ripple effect.
What's up, everybody? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Today, actually, or this month, actually makes a year since I started this podcast, and it's episode 40, so this is kind of exciting. I didn't think a year later I'd be where I am today, which actually not much has changed besides I have some sheets hanging behind me. but we're back with that
40th episode.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've been busy, so you haven't been able to put yours out as often.
I'm so bummed. I really need. I would be so on cloud nine if my podcast, because I love it. I absolutely love podcasting, but I don't have time. And even with my co-producer helping me, Robert Garza in the Pursuit podcast in Texas, I just don't have, I'm not that good at the technical stuff. So it's hard. I have to really get it used. And then I'm focusing on that, where it'd be so nice if I could just Joe Rogan it and walk in, and I have someone that sets it up, and I could just line up guests, and we could just bullshit, and I could just talk to people, and then the recordings and everything get put up for me would be, hopefully after Culture High releases, then I can really focus on that and get back into that and do that all the time, and and then have a travel kit too that'd be really easy, just because there's so many great people that after we interview them or work with them, it'd be awesome to sit down with them for an hour and pick their brain. And because I honestly think podcasts have not only helped my career but changed my life. They've just opened me to all kinds of new perspectives and stuff like that. So I love them. That's what I listen to, and I just think that's where kind of the future's going. So not that my podcasts are the most breakthrough revolutionary things, but I like to bullshit, as we've seen, if those that have listened to me before. So and I would love to just be able to punch one out at least once a week, if not 2 a week, if I had really interesting guests. Partly because, as you and me discussed, it gives me an opportunity to talk to people I'm interested in. When people hear the word podcast, they're willing to sit down and share, which is fucking awesome. And so many fascinating and interesting people are just oh yeah, I'll do a podcast, no problem, boom, let's do it, which is just awesome. So it gives me an excuse to sit down with the people I want to talk to. So I'm hoping to get back at it. But yeah, this has been probably the busiest few months of my life. I've never been so busy. I've never felt where I get 25 things done in a day, and then it still feels like I got nowhere because I had 35 things put on my plate. So yeah,
dude, you were working your ass off, man. I see you just constantly, new pictures, different places, on different shows, just working your ass. I know people say success comes with, work or luck. I mean, a little bit of luck, but I think a little bit of hard work pays off too. So it's just, I think you need a little bit of both.
There's a famous golfer that said that. I think it was back in like the 90s. That said, he's like, someone said, yeah, I had some really good bounces, some great luck on the course today. He said, yeah, funny how that works. He's like, the harder I work, the luckier I seem to get in my career, right? So there definitely is some luck and great timing if things need to line up, but I find you can increase the odds of that luck and stuff coming by diligently and going after. Like, you put enough work, more lucky chances will come because you're constantly putting yourself there for success or further succeeding towards your goals. So I definitely, luck is involved, but you can help the odds with luck if you push and persevere a lot as well.
Definitely. I definitely think that you need if you put yourself in the right positions, then you'll more likely, you'll run into some luck, while you're putting in the hard work. You definitely need both. I think that, when you hear people say, oh, I got lucky, I got this, it's like, I think sometimes celebrities or athletes will say, I got lucky or whatever. It's like, behind all that luck, what you see, I mean, most people who are successful have done a lot of hard work and invested a lot of time that you don't see, you might not see when you're talking to them or, on TV or in a movie. But, in the back, they're working their ass off to try to, put in the extra hours. And
you're exactly right. And a lot of the time, if it's someone that's really successful saying that, a lot of the time they're just trying to be humble too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's worse than if they're just like, yeah, I'm a fucking man. If it's an athlete, they're like, I just score touchdowns all day long. Really? So it had nothing to do with the quarterback throwing you the perfect pass, your defense setting you up with the right blocks. So a guy will be, I got lucky. But you can't take away from how hard that guy worked, whatever profession it is, to get there, right? For that luck to present itself, right? Like, you have to get yourself in that situation first. And I think that's exactly you can't, like Arnold says, you can't be afraid to fail, because I fail all the time. All the time.
I think that's a good lesson to learn. I think the fear of failing prevents people from taking a lot of chances. And I think people are super afraid of getting or disappointment, getting turned. I mean, perfect example, like getting turned down, for example. I mean, you can have a dude hit on a girl that maybe doesn't even find attractive as a joke, say, hey, go hit on that chick. If he gets turned down, he's all bent out of shape, even though he wasn't even into her in the first place, and it was probably just a joke, So I just think that we do fear disappointment, and sometimes it does. It holds us back, and we kind of life. I mean, you're only here for if everything goes as planned, 70, 80, 90 years or whatever, with some decent health. So it's like, take as many chances as you can, enjoy it while you're here. And I think that, going back to podcasting, I think that the nice thing about podcasting is I think that, and like myself, I mean, I just came from long days of work, and sometimes I'm in an office, sometimes I'm outside getting my hands dirty, shoveling like I was some of the day today. And one thing that helps me is on my way to travel to this town or that town, or I put on a podcast, and it kind of, for that ride, I'm forgetting about where I'm going and what I'm doing, and I'm just like focused into this conversation, and I'm learning something. So that drive, instead of being a useless 20 minutes or an hour of my day that I gain nothing from, and I'm just wasted on this road driving to my destination, I can actually take something in, learn something that's thought-provoking, or even just something that I can bring up in a conversation later when I'm at the bar with the guys and spark a good conversation. So I think that the cool thing about podcasting is that I think there's a lot of people who have to go through the daily grind, and it helps them get through it, and I think that's awesome. I hope that all of us that are podcasting are doing that for other people, because, like most of us podcasters, we're also podcast fans, and that's how we got into it. So I hope the same way that podcasts are doing that for me, I hope we're doing the same for others. I hope people are enjoying it and helping them get through, maybe their shitty situation of going to a job they might not necessarily feel fulfilled doing, and, just to be, to make ends meet. And so I just think that it's a cool thing. And like you said, I definitely think it's the future. I remember I had Guy Evans from Smells Like Human Spirit podcast. Like he was one of my first guests. I remember we were talking about how some of the people he knows were talking about how podcast is really almost at its peak, and I'm like, dude, I don't think it's any, and we were talking about how we think people are wrong. We're like, well, I don't think anybody, it's even close to the peak. I know plenty of people who still don't even know what a podcast is, which is weird because tons of
people don't know what a podcast is, and I think it's only going to get. It's funny because me and like my core boys, like we listen to it so much that like we bring up Joe Rogan and the Rogan podcast so fucking much because he has so many interesting people and we listen to it. And it's funny because we'll be like, dude, did you know this? And people will be like, dude, I listened to that episode too. And they'll be like, oh man, did you hear about this fascinating thing that they discovered in the ocean or whatever? Be like, I listened to podcast 501 as well, man. Like, it's like we listen to it so much, like, and tons of people still don't listen, and they listen to the radio and everything else. And I don't know, like, I like to listen to the radio to kind of have a local connection every once in a while. But anytime I'm doing any mundane work or I'm going on a long road trip, like podcasts are inserted into my thing. Absolutely 110%. And they help. Like I just did that last week. I was picking weeds all in my yard. To get our thing, like it took me like 4 hours because we have to get our rough grade done. So our yard isn't completed yet. And I just put on, like, I listened to the Joe Rogan Gracie interview, right, where him and Eddie Bravo were on. I just listened to that whole podcast, picked the whole weeds, and it was like no big deal, right? Like otherwise a shitty day of picking weeds of 4 hours, like when I don't have a ton of time to spare, but I'm doing things for the family, would have really sucked. But because it was that, I was like, it's not so bad.
Yeah, it's not, and it's absolutely true. And the cool thing is that they're uncensored. You get a real view into somebody's character and who they are. Because
we talked about that before. That's the part for me that bugs me about other interviews now that I can't handle, is they're so fucking bullshit. I like the realism. I like the fucking, like that Gracie one of him talking about all these street fights he had and they're smashing people. Like, I fucking love that stuff. So when you watch real interviews now and you see them on like the Today Show or something, I'm like, oh, this is so fake. People want to talk so much different, but they're pulling punches and they're not being honest. And they're, I totally do not think podcasts have peaked. I think we're only going to learn new more methods. I mean, almost everyone tries to go kind of the Joe Rogan platform, which I would agree with. I wouldn't see changing. Like, I know some people maybe do commercials in between and stuff. To me, that gets too radio, but I think it's only yet to come. And I think there's still, I mean, if you just look at from when I started listening, because I started listening at like podcast 20 with Joe and went back, and then I've caught like, now I've missed hundreds because he's just pumping out way too many. But I wish I just had more time. And I wasn't doing the road trips as much. But I mean, it seemed to me, and maybe I'm just more aware of it. At that time, it only seemed like there was like 20 different podcasts around, and now there's like thousands of podcasts.
Well, you know what?
Almost everyone that's on his show has their own regular podcast now.
Thanks to him, and most of them are good shows. Like Chris Ryan's podcast is awesome. Cara Santa Maria's podcast is good. You got Duncan Trussell.
Well, I like her podcast. I mean, it was because of her. It was funny because a lot of the people that were on Joe's podcast, we ended up interviewing for the Culture High.
Graham Hancock.
After listening to Graham Hancock on there from the first time, we were fucking sold. When he talked about the war on consciousness, like Brett and I were like, this guy is fucking going on the podcast. And then every other podcast he did was awesome. And then Cara Santa Maria was, because we were looking for some really strong women, right, for the film. And then her podcast, we're like, holy fuck, we got to get her. And was there somebody else? But I mean, it was like 2 or 3 that like we wouldn't have even known who they were had we not heard them on the podcast. And now actually both Cara Santa Maria and Graham Hancock have really great moments. Actually, Graham Hancock's in the fucking trailer that's releasing, in the long version of the trailer. So it's, it's just opened so many. I mean, I have nothing but good thing. And I want to get back on mine, but like, I'm just like, I've never been so stupid busy. I can just imagine now, and I'm not trying to say this to any of your listeners that don't know me, but like, I'm not trying to say this to be cool or that I think I'm a big shot, but I can now see when I've tried to interview celebrities for my films and their schedules are always crazy and it seems like they're putting you off. Like, I'm not even a celebrity, but I have a film that I've worked on for a long time that's getting quite a bit of attention, that's coming out, The Culture High, right? As maybe your listeners know, you certainly know.
Yeah.
And I mean, holy fuck, between like my time is just like, it's like media interview, and we're going to do a release here, and the Tug releases, and then film festivals, and then here and there, and then family, right? I'm trying to be a good family man. Like, I'm going to, like, my daughter just started hockey and going to hockey games, and literally what I do is so that I don't get distracted, because my ADD is so fucking bad. If my phone buzzes, I will miss it. When I go to our hockey practice and games, I just leave my phone in the car, because I'm the worst. If my phone starts beeping and making sounds, I'll look, and then I'm missing moments. So like, everyone's like, take a picture. I'm like, no, because if I have my phone, then I will fucking get distracted by my phone. So I don't even bring it into the arena. I just want to watch my daughter play hockey for 2 to 3 hours and I'm out.
Yeah, well, that's kind of one of the good things and bad things about technology. I had Douglas Ruskoff was one of my first guests on the show, and and same thing. We talked about. He had this book called The Present Shock, and it was all it basically the basis of it was that we're never in the present anymore. We're constantly looking at our phones. Even though you're there physically, mentally, like if your phone vibrates, even if you're looking at the person who's talking to you, you're thinking about who called me. What was that? Was that Facebook? Was that an email? Was that So it's like mentally you're really not there, and even though you're there, physically, and you see how it's just culture has changed a little bit, because I remember first when phones really got popular, people were fighting about being on their phones all the time. Then because there's so many arguments about it, people were off their phones. But now what they do, you're at dinner with I'm at dinner with my girlfriend, and I see another couple. Once somebody goes to the bathroom, somebody grabs their phone and looks
and they're texting and
So I'm like, and then you know the story. You're like, okay, you guys fought about this. Now you have to do it when they're not there. And then they don't yell at you, and it's just like, I'm like, holy shit, these things have consumed our life. But we also have the capability of downloading podcasts. I mean, I use my phone. I have an Android, so I use Podcast Addict, which I love. It's one of my favorite podcast apps. I've downloaded every one, and this is definitely my favorite one. And it makes it easy. I download it when I'm at home, when I have Wi-Fi, in the morning when I'm eating breakfast, and then I listen to it while I'm on the road, and that way I don't use up any of my, data or whatnot. And I think that as podcasts get easier to download and people start realizing, like, holy shit, I can get on-demand radio basically for free with all these guests that I love and all these interesting people. And I mean, no matter what you're into, somebody has a podcast. If you're into wrestling, I mean, Jesse Ventura and Bill Goldberg has a podcast. If you're into, UFC, guys have podcasts, so it's just like whatever your comedian, tons of comedians have podcasts, so if you're into that. So
you're getting what's so refreshing, and which is kind of, I think, shifting consciousness all over, is you're getting honesty in all these things, right? Because they're uncensored. So it's not the old bullshit shows that they used to be, right? That like now, like that's what I love most about podcasts, is like, that's why I'm excited if a UFC fighter's on there or a filmmaker I like or something, because I know this is uncensored, them just talking. It's them. I'm going to get a taste of them. I'm going to get to see what they're like. I'm going to get to know them. I'm going to understand. Whereas it's not that I honestly can't stand, and I know you still have to do them. I mean, even this it's kind of interesting, and I'm not here to bash the industry, but it's interesting because the way the system works, right? It's such a weird system in which, like, you see this is different with podcasts too, but for publicists, for the Culture High, right? Our publicist is trying to get our big names interviewed for the film, the people that interviewed for the film. And they said, would this person do it or would this person not? And I was thinking to him, like, but like, we interviewed them. They can't really speak to how, like, how the film was put together and what it's all. A lot of them haven't even seen it yet. We're trying to get them to come to the premieres to see it. But they're the big names, so that's who they're trying to draw to the big shows to talk about it. And I was like, that's really, like, honestly, like, I didn't want to go into, because that's their world. That's the format. That's normal, right? That's a normal publicity format, is they're going to try to pitch the big names that we interviewed in the film. And I was like, but honestly, I would think if you had on the show, and I'm not trying to sell myself up, but I would think if you were remotely interested in our film, you'd be much more interested to hear me or the director, Brett, talk, because we're the ones that have been battling for 4 years with the phone and did these, or with the film, rather than the big names we interviewed for the film, because they won't really be able to speak much to the film other than, like, why did you do an interview? Well, I thought it would be a good project and I'm passionate about the subject matter, other than maybe Joe, because Joe's just so fucking knowledgeable that he doesn't even really know it. He can just go off on what he knows about the subject matter and it pretty much cover what's in the film, right? Like, he speaks loud and clear to a lot of these things, but it's just interesting to see how that is, where just my mind works so differently. I was like, if I was a listener, I'd much rather listen to just the director, the producer of a documentary or a film than the big actor that starred in it. I'd much rather listen to the guys that had to put it together. But that's me, right? But it was just interesting to hear that. I was like, wow, so that game's still in play. And that just made me think of why the podcast world's taking out, because I think a lot of podcasters, listeners, listen or think how I do it. They're like, well, I'd much rather listen to the guys that have been in the trenches, that have been all over podcasts talking about it. I'd rather listen to them talk about it than just the big name doctor, scientist, or celebrity that they put in the film, other than maybe a Graham Hancock. He'd be brilliant. But
yeah, but I know what you mean. It's like a marketing game, because technically, if you want somebody to talk about the movie, wouldn't you want to get somebody who didn't just do a segment, but was a part of the whole process with picking guests, with
was a producer that put it together, right? Someone interviewed for the film. They're like, well, like, I'm even like, I didn't want to be rude, but I'm thinking, I'm like, well, what they even talking about? Well, they interviewed me. They asked me some questions a year and a half ago. I don't even really remember what they asked me. Like, they haven't seen the film yet. Right. I was just like, wow, that's like, but I get it. That's what they're used to. Cause I mean, when they go to the big TV shows and talk shows and they put mine or Brett's name in there, people are like, who the fuck are these jokers? Right. Like, they're not going to do anything, which sucks. But I mean, it also comes back to why you see so many of us connecting through these. And that's why I think I said to you on your last podcast, when someone, like, people try to sell me on like, oh, I interviewed this guy and this guy. I'm like, dude, you had me at podcast. As soon as you said I want to do a podcast, I'll give you a shot, man. Like, I will fucking do it. Like, because I'm not censored on here, so I can get my point out. And as I always say, I don't shut up. So it's easy for me. Like, I like these venues because then I can really explain to you the hustle that I went through with my films, like the grind that we have to do, that docs are not a fucking big money maker and people think you're killing it. And I love talking about the piracy issues and stuff because I have some real, like, I'm really torn between those two worlds, right? Where people are like, you know, because even a lot of people now, I see them and they're like, when is it going to be available on YouTube? I'm like, not for 2 years. So you know what we are going to do those? We're going to make it available on Vimeo for $5 fucking. That's fair, right?
That's
like
cheap as fuck.
We put this out. And it won't be like that for North America. There's a strange. So here's where I'm explaining, like, because Phase 4 Films, right, our distributor, which now got bought out by E1, they pre-bought the North American rights to our film before we got into production. So those that know the film from Kickstarter, as we send the Kickstarter video, that was a component of it, that the film would not move forward without your Kickstarter contribution. But that was only 20% of the budget. The entire budget of the doc is $650,000, right? Really expensive. Really hard to put together, with including $160,000 of my family's personal money that my stepdad gave to me again, like he did in the union. I got my union debt down from $240,000 to $60,000, and then I borrowed 160. So I'm like right back to where I was in the first film, right? To go back and do a second film because I'm crazy like that. And then, you know, when we go to release, so Phase 4 pre-bought this, so now they have the rights to North America. I don't own them. They don't belong to me. So when they release them on iTunes and whatever else, they pre-bought them like 2 years ago. So people are like, what the fuck's this price? Why isn't it on Netflix yet? I'm like, I don't even own those anymore. They were sold before the film was even finished, before we even began shooting, right? That's just the process. So they're going to do their release, but they are doing some very cool things with the release where they're going to release day and date theatrical and VOD, which is kind of the new model they do for indie films like this that have a following, where it will be in theaters. We're going to be in theaters for 1 week in New York and LA as our qualifying run. I can't say for which awards because they're trademarked that you can't actually ever mention what qualifying run you're going for, but a documentary must have a 1 week theatrical in New York and LA to qualify for the big award show. We know what we're talking about here, right? I mean, so just to qualify, and that's such a fucking long shot. The film is fantastic, but who knows, you know, as a filmmaker, you just want to go through the process and do it once and say, like, I did it. I did the whole application process. I went through it. So we get 1 week in New York. It'll be at the IFC Film Center Theater on West 4th, and that'll be from October 3rd to October 10th. Then October 10th to October 16th, it'll be in the Royal Theater in LA on Santa Monica. Proper screenings, 4 screenings a day, 1 week in both cities. Then we're going to a company called Tug. And this part I really like, and I'm not saying this as a sales pitch, but Tug allows you or anyone in the United States to set up a theatrical screening. All you have to do is you go to tug.com, which is TUGG.com. You put in your zip code. It's free to sign up, free to log in. It's like setting up a Facebook account, only more basic. You put in like 3 things. Put in your zip code, and then it'll give you a list of theaters that they work with. You pick your first choice, you pick your 2 backups, and then you pick a date you want to do it, and then Tug will say, we'll get back to you after we've contacted the theater and try to set this up for you. They'll then get back to you and say, we couldn't get theater 1, or maybe they could. We got your second choice. In order for this event to happen, you have to pre-sell 70 tickets. If you don't hit the pre-sell threshold of 70 tickets, nothing happens. Nothing. Your event doesn't happen. It was unsuccessful. If you do hit it, then the screening comes to your local theater, and you get 5% of the ticket sales, and you get to present it in your name or whatever company you want to promote. And if you want to, you can add a fundraiser function where you can raise money for your local podcast, charity, drug policy awareness company, whatever you want. You can say, add this much money to your ticket in order to donate to such and such event, charity, or space. So this is the way of the future. Tug just launched at Sundance last year, but this is where the non-blockbuster films are going to go, because how awesome, like I think I might have said this on your podcast. I know I've said a lot of interviews. For me, when I knew I was fucked and I was never going to be able to do anything other than make films, is when I was in a theater full of people to watch my film. And I saw them going through the emotions. I saw them laughing when Joe Rogan came on, and crying when Greg Cooper with MS was going on, and having this emotional roller coaster with your work with hundreds of people. It changes you. It emotionally moved me. I almost cried. Like, I remember sitting there being like, how am I ever going to do anything else in life? Like, when you experience this room full of people being affected by your work in a dramatic way, I was done. I was like, fuck, I'm going to do this forever. This is what I'm going to be doing, is this. So now, that's what I love the most about Tug, is that then the person hosting the event, although they didn't produce the film, it's pretty cool that they can say, I fucking love this subject matter. I'm going to bring it to my local community. Then I get to present it. I get to be the person who's like, yeah, I invited all my friends, family, this and that, got a whole theater of my community to present the film that I really wanted to see. You get to have that same experience I did as a filmmaker. Like, how exciting is it if it's like your teachers and the people you work with and your family and your friends, and you're like, I fucking made this happen. I brought this movie here, and you get 5% of the ticket sales. I fucking love it. We have like 7 in place right now. I'm hoping to get like 100 to 200 throughout our Tug release, just to go all over. It's a win for everyone. We're giving everybody a great follow-up film, and I sincerely mean that. I personally think the Culture Eye is 10 times better than The Union. There might be some people that are just diehard fans who are like, well, you can never beat the original. But, I mean, we're just better filmmakers. The people we interviewed, we got a much thicker cast of amazing interviews. The Union is a classic, but I really think we did the follow-up that everybody wants.
Well, I'm sure you learned a lot. I'm sure you learned a lot. Yeah.
That was our first film.
Yeah.
Right? This is our second one, so we've learned a ton. And we're better storytellers, and we made a better film, and we had better budget, and we had more people can participate, and we've got our distributors pushing us further. So everything's bigger and better, but we're not the bigger and better sellout. Like, we made a film that is still Brett Harvey's vision. Nobody fucking touched it. It was his vision, the way he said. He's utilized some of the quirkiness of the first one. He's, heightened it with, better sound mix this time, and footage and graphics and bigger names, and, just so many intellectuals that we could hardly fit some of them in. Some of them get one line in the movie because there's just so many great interviews to pick from. And you can bring it to your local community. Like, I fucking love that. Like, I hope it spirals. I'd like to see 250 screenings across the United States, but I'll be happy with 100. That's my goal.
Yeah, that's cool, because you feel like you're part of the process, and like you said, like,
you are part of the process.
Yeah, you are a part. Yeah, exactly. You become a part of the process, and to get all those people there, and then, like you said, to do it, you're probably really into that subject, and that's a beautiful thing about documentaries. I think that you capture something that regular films don't. I mean, you're touching real subjects, real issues with real stories, real people, and I think that you can't get that anywhere else. That's why, like, it's hard.
Fuck, you are bang on, brother. You are bang. That is what, because everyone keeps telling me to get out of docs, because there's no money in docs. There really isn't. Like, even the little bit you make, docs are not a big sell. Like, everyone's like, get into the movies, get into special effects, I'm not saying I don't want to do features, but there's something special to see it affect audiences and get emails from around the world, how you've changed lives, how you've changed perspectives, how you've made an impact with your movie. It's tough to just go do a movie then that's just like, oh, that was a fun shoot 'em up B-level action movie, right? Would I ever watch it again? Probably not, but like, whatever. It was like, it's tough for me.
Well,
to
even a drama, like, even if you get a drama that really, really moves you, the second you leave that theater, because it wasn't real, just actors, it doesn't stay with you. Where like a documentary that really, really moves you, you leave that theater and you can't stop thinking about it. You watch a really good documentary, it might change your perspective on everything. I mean, it might really change, and the same way we talk about podcasting and our podcast molding people's opinions and perspectives, and with all these interesting conversations, I think documentaries have been doing that, even before podcasts. And it was for me, especially, like, a lot of my worldviews and a lot of like what exposed me to corruption and real, like, I grew up being a huge Denzel Washington fan, and I'm like, holy fuck, I thought his movies were great. I didn't realize this shit was happening in real life, like real corruption, real conspiracy, like real stuff was going on. I mean, and there was, backdoor deals and all these things. Like, I'm like, holy shit, like, Denzel could never be in a movie as good as this because this is real and it touches you in a way that nothing else can touch you. And have you ever saw that the Lip TV show Bring Your Own Doc? It's you know what Lip TV is, right?
No, what is that?
Sean Stone has a show on it called Buzzsaw. He used to have it with Tyrell Ventura and Tabitha Wallace was on it, and now he's just doing it now. They're on to other things, but it's basically a YouTube channel. It's called Lip TV, but they also have she's a documentary filmmaker, but I always forget her name. She did oh my God, I can't remember what the movie was. It's an older movie. It was really good. And then she's working on a Russell Brand movie. But basically, she's a documentary filmmaker, and she started her own show on Lip TV called BYOD for Bring Your Own Doc. And she has basically just documentary filmmakers come on. So that's something I was actually every once in a while.
Whoa. Yeah, I got to fucking try to get in touch with them then. Bring Your Own Doc. When she just interviews them on the show?
Yeah. Basically, they have people like Red Obsession, that movie about wine in China. They had like tons of good documentaries on there. They, I believe, Warren Whistleblowers. I believe that might have been on there. There's a bunch of great docs, and I'm a big documentary guy. I love documentaries. So like,
so they play the docs and they just interview the filmmakers.
Exactly. They have the directors or producers or whoever on, and they'll show like little parts of the film, and then they basically talk about the film and like the whole process of it. And she's also a documentary filmmaker. If you just Google it right now, I'm sure you could find it. It's
so it's BYOD.
Yeah.
BY Best Practices?
No, by Lip TV.
Bring your own device, bring your own Lip TV.
If you put in Bring Your Own Doc, let me see if I could probably find it too. This is now I feel like I'm on the Rogan podcast Googling shit. If you let me see.
How have I never heard of this?
If you just put in, this is what I Googled exactly.
Okay, yeah. Lip TV.
Yeah, Bring Your Own Doc.
Bring Your Own Doc.
I actually.
Okay. I'm not trying to just sound fucking cool, but fuck, I need to get my publicist and my team to get on this shit.
Yeah, because that's like right down your alley. I mean, that's it's about docs, and she's I can't remember what movie she was a part of, but it's a good movie. It's
so Omni Twitter is a rare distinction, winning grand jury prize at Sundance for 2004 Sundance winning doc Dig about the collusion in art and commerce through Live of Two Bands. And her 2009 top prize winner, We Live in Public.
Exactly, that's the one.
Wow.
We Live in Public's a really interesting documentary. It's about one of the guys who made tons of money off basically the internet, and one of the first guys that made a lot of money off that boom, and then he had this experiment where he just basically had all this money, didn't know what the fuck to do with it, and he had like, I don't know if it was like some underground place or some type of a facility in New York that he bought and put cameras everywhere, and then got all these people to sign up for this experiment, and the experiment was everybody's going to be filmed 24/7 at all times, and he's going to provide the basically the places, the bathrooms, the foods, the beds, everything was be provided. I think some entertainment, all this stuff, TVs, and all you had to do was just be there. And little by little, things just got more and more chaotic, because what ended up happening was the more and more people got used to, because this is the one thing, next to everybody's bed, there was a TV where you could flip through all the cameras that were all over the place. So you could watch people fucking, you could watch people in the bathroom.
So this is a documentary?
Yeah, this is the one that you mentioned, the second one in 2009 that she did.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, but it was weird because it's almost like it was kind of ahead of its time, because we're getting more and more used to like not having privacy. So I always think about that movie, because I'm like, we kind of do feel like we're all being watched at all times. But it was weird because he even experimented with his own relationship after, because he felt like that was going to be the future. So he was experimenting with it. It ended up getting shut down because violence broke out and all this other stuff. And what ended up happening was the more and more people got used to being on camera, the more and more they didn't care. So people went from like kind of trying to be private to, well, everybody can see me anyway. So people were just shitting all over the place, and it was pretty crazy. But it was a really interesting documentary. But yeah, she obviously has done documentaries. Then she has that show, and they have a bunch of it. Basically, it's like an online channel, and then they have actually quite a few good shows, and another one, Sean Stone, who Oliver Stone's son, he also has a show on there called Buzzsaw.
We almost had Oliver Stone had agreed to interview for us for the doc, and then we lost him like just after Christmas.
Really? Well, that's
schedule. Yeah, we fucking had him, and he was down. This time we had like 45 minutes with him in his office, and then I don't know, for whatever reason we couldn't reschedule. We tried to talk to his manager and stuff why, and they just said, we can't tell you, but just he's decided not to participate. But fuck, would have loved to have had him involved.
Yeah. I try to Sean, actually, me and Sean and actually Cara Santa Maria, we've been going back and forth. Same thing, dude. Scheduling can be a pain in the ass. Cara had like this 1 week that she was free, and it was just like the only week I couldn't do it. And then since then, it's been like back and forth, and I'm just like, dude, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get her on this show. But it's just, it definitely, it's hard because like with you have to travel and you have to, you try to. I'm sure you. How does that work? Do you try to do what's convenient for your guests, so you go to them, or do you see if any?
Yeah, that's why I try to create like a portable kit, because I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and like nobody's here, right? Except for some of the hockey player guys I want to do, right? So I try to build a kit, or Skype too, right? But it's always better. I mean, certain people, just have way better conversations. Like, I mean, you and me, it's not a problem to go on Skype, but a lot of people kind of struggle. They find it less intimate. Like, I'd always like to be in the more personal setting if I could. It's just more, you get people more relaxed. I like the atmosphere, just like, fuck, have a beer, take a piss, just relax, right? We're just bullshitting. We're just rapping ideas and talking about shit and just going, right? Don't worry about.
Well, there is some
people still aren't used to that, right? Like, I had a great interview, and I love him. He's a buddy of mine, David Lee, who trains. I don't know if you listen. That was my last podcast. He was the one, basically Rory McDonald's trainer ever since he was 12 years old. He trained him all the way through, and still now gets called by him. And now, out of this tiny gym in Kelowna, Toshido MMA, he's got 4 fighters signed in the UFC. He has Sarah, Cupcake.
Oh, that's right. You talked about this on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it fucking is awesome, right? So, and he's an awesome podcast. He's got a great voice, and he's just but even then it was funny. Like, he's so good on the podcast. And then there's at one point where he's like, he was like, I'm like, dude, you can just say I gotta piss and walk off, right? You don't have to, like, but it was funny because I was like, oh, I get it, right? But people are still like, oh, I gotta be quiet then I gotta go pee. I'm like, dude, you can just say I gotta fucking piss and go piss.
That's happened to me quite a few times where people are like, oh, you can cut this out. I had somebody from Kate Dodds, who was a part of the actually Canadian film, The Corporation.
Yeah. I'm actually hoping to, because they hold the record right now in Canada for highest grossing doc ever.
Yeah.
The Corporation is the biggest one. So I'm hoping that the Culture High will beat it.
Let's cross her. Yeah, because I had her on after you, and I was like, oh, another Canadian filmmaker, and I was telling her how you were on not too long ago, so she was on, and then like we're talking about, I forget what documentary it was, but neither of us could figure out the name, and she's like, wait, let me go get it. Cut this out. And then I'm thinking to myself, I'm not gonna cut this out. And you can hear like running up the stairs and coming back down. And then Daniele Bignelli once, he says I don't know if he never actually even commented on it, but I'm pretty sure he was eating. He's like, oh, you mind if we do just the audio, podcast this time? I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like 30 minutes in, I can hear like a plate and like a knife, and I'm like, Danielle, are you eating steak or something? And he starts laughing, and he never commented about it. He's like, oh, you can hear that? I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. But I think it's that realness that people enjoy, because it reminds you.
It does. It lets you see that they're not being fake, right? You're getting them right there in the moment. I like it. I don't mind. Like, someone's like, oh, I gotta go piss. Like, yeah, go fucking piss, or gonna go eat, or go do, like, good, go do it. You don't have to. That's interesting. What was the girl's name from the Corporation?
Kate Dodds. She was a part of, I believe, marketing, and what was the other? She had her own company too that worked with them, and she was a part of. I can get you the name after, and I can.
I'm just curious. Yeah, because I mean, the Corporation is held up as like a model in Canada because I think it made the Oscar nods. It was at Sundance. It's like.
Yeah, I had her on.
That's the funny thing is, like, me and one other filmmaker I know, Brian Storko, great guy. He worked on a lot of docs. He edited Internet's Own Boy, which is doing really well right now.
That's a great documentary.
Yeah, he did the editing on that, or was one of the editors on that. And then he also has another one right now called Fight Church, and it's all about pastors that fight each other.
Really?
Yeah. And I think he directed that one, and then another one called A Little Town Named Arson, which is about a whole bunch of like churches that were getting. He edited on that one, but I was saying, because he was going to all these great festivals, I'm like, dude, you're killing it this year. I'm like, don't forget about, because it's funny because we met each other at the Edmonton International Film Festival in 2007. The Union won Best Canadian Doc, and him and his directing partner won Best International Doc for their movie called Strictly Background, which is about people that were extras in all these big movies. Like they're always like one of the feature extras, but they can never break into like full-time acting. And of course, they're great characters. It's a great doc. And we were both saying, he was like, dude, did you get into these festivals? I'm like, no, dude, like no love from the big festivals. Like just, I can't, like you know, the big ones everybody knows, like Cannes and Sundance and Toronto and Berlin. I don't know. I guess you can't ever go by what they say, but I can't crack those ones for the life of me. And he's like, dude, don't feel bad. He's like, I can't get in those ones either with the ones I direct. Ones I've edited on have been in those festivals, but I've never got into one that I've directed. It's hard, man. So like the corporation killed on all those. I'm pretty sure it premiered at Sundance and then did TIFF and then did like, it won a whole bunch of awards and did very well for itself. And then I know it's like the highest grossing doc so far in Canadian history.
And it's older too, because I had her on to promote the 10th anniversary, so it was like 10 years. Yeah,
I know the corporation was done before when we were doing the Union. When we were shooting the Union, the corporation. So corporation, I'm guessing, is like 2004, 2005.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it was So.
Yeah, 10 years.
So
it was. It was 2004.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was. Yeah, and I had her on, and I'm like, holy shit, because that was one of the first documentaries that I saw that really like opened, you know, kind of changed my perspective on things. It was wicked well done. It brought you into so many different things, from like how marketing is basically brainwashing and you know. Just,
and I'm glad you bring that one up as an example, because we had to actually just bring it up because the Culture High is 2 hours with credits, right? So it's just under 2 hours long. And everyone is so used to this number, and we don't know where they get it from, where they're like, oh, you got to cut it down. It should only be 95 minutes. And I was like, and me and Brett, and I defended Brett here, and I was like, no, it shouldn't be 95 minutes. We're covering a subject that has been a hot topic for over 4 fucking decades, okay? Like, you can't fucking cover it. Like, we have to cut out whole sections. And then they were kind of trying to say, plays devil's advocate. They're like, well, name some other documentaries that are that long. Then we started going through the list. Bowling for Columbine, Fahrenheit 9/11, The Corporation, The Lance Armstrong Line, Sicko. It was like, you name every big fucking documentary pretty much in the last 10 fucking years. They're all over and most of them, The Corporation is 2.5 hours long. Like, it's really long, right? Like, so we did get ours down because ours was sitting at around, I think it was like 2:05, so we got it to 2 with credits. So we did shave it by like 10 minutes. But, you know, then you watch the people who we really wanted to, which is interesting about where the audience is, because I think audiences now are so much smarter than they were 10 years ago. So you really have to, which was very smart on Brett, the director. Brett's like, I don't want a lot of other filmmakers watching the rough cut, because like they'll fuck with my head, because filmmakers, it's just a problem we have. They'll start going in, and they'll start being like, well, I would change different music and have more talking heads. I don't like your clip here. Maybe we should put this section here and this section there. Whereas, and that'll fuck with anyone, because that's stylistic choices, right? It's not covering, where Brett was just like, no, I'm going to just have to trust my gut, like I did with the Union. I've been following this audience for 8 years. We've been seeing who they want us to interview, who we should interview, who are the most respected names, how we should put this together. So we're going to follow that trend. We go through it and put it together and put all the sections. And then that was the interesting thing, is when we sent it out to about 25, 30 people to get reviews, and we sent 20 just audience members, people that were huge Union fans, people that hated marijuana and were just documentary fans. We sent it out to all different kinds. And from the 20 people that were just who our typical audience is going to be, they all wrote back where it was like, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. All we're getting is pats on the back, right? We need to be. But then it was funny when you got all the filmmakers' notes, where theirs were just like so stylistically chosen, where it was just like, man, these are stylistic notes, stylistic notes, stylistic notes. That doesn't help. Like, what we need is like ones that did help is you get somebody would just be like, I couldn't read certain people's credits. I didn't understand. Like, when you title it, because it's very important when people don't think about the doc, is when you have somebody saying something very, very important in the film, if you have their title come up at the wrong time, if you have it come up in the middle of their conversation, well, then you look down to see who they are and you stop listening to what they're saying, right? So those things have to be very subtly put in the right places. And then you have to make sure they're really easily legible, because you don't want people like trying to be like, is that big enough? And when you're on a big editing screen, at first, like when our titles came up, they were like too small. When you saw them on the big editing screen, they looked perfect. But when you saw them on film, you're like, what's that guy's title again? And who's this person? And so it's just interesting to see the battles you have to go through. And that's where you really have to, you have to trust like the director you put in. And that's where, I got kudos about that, where Brett's like, Adam, I really love how like, as a producer, like you just shut down these people that try to get in my face and tell me how to make the film their way. And I was like, well, dude, we did the first one, we did this one. I've trusted you. Well, why would I get, don't hire a director if you want to fucking change totally his vision, right?
Exactly.
Then get that. Like, so, but it's an interesting battle that you have to go through. So I love that the corporation was one that affected you that much, because we stuck to our guns and we made the union 2 hours when other people said you should be 90 minutes. And we said, nope, not a fucking chance.
Well, you look at it.
Other people said too, where they're like, well, I don't really get, you have a real long section about politics in there, right? And Brett and I mean, it's one of my favorite sections, but it gets you to understand why. Because you'll get people saying, well, they made it illegal for a reason. When you really start to understand politics, you find out there's a lot of bills that are passed for very wrong reasons.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why the political section, Brett's like so fucking important to me, because you have to understand how it's systematically corrupt to then understand how we got to where we are. Like, to me, I was like, I get it, right? So I was like, and maybe if it's too intelligent for some people, so be it. But we battled, and I think, and then, I don't like it sucks when you're talking about your own movie. You're like, it's fucking awesome. But 9 out of 10 people are like, the length is perfect. It's nice and juicy. Gives me tons to bite into, and that's where I was like, there's no way we're going to make it less than the union. The union was, 105. It was an hour and 35 minutes, right? So we're not making it fucking shorter, or 145. We're not making it shorter. It's only 15 minutes longer than the union, but it's funny because it plays shorter. You would think that the union's longer, because the union, we kind of had to stretch out scenes a little bit more because we didn't have the content to carry the story. This is so just like bam, 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 more, where it's like, it seems to flow quicker, where you're like, wow, that was 2 hours. That flew by like this.
Yeah, and you look at, and you can definitely overthink things. If you have too many opinions involved, you can drive yourself crazy, because even if you don't agree with them, you can start second-guessing your own opinion.
You'll second-guess yourself. Yeah. And that's what sucks, because film festivals do that too, right? They really fuck with you, where you're like, we were so proud. We thought like Canada, the Culture High set a Canadian record for film and video up until Corner Gas, which is a big produced like CBC show that was on for like 7 years. The Culture High was the highest grossing Canadian film and video project in Canadian history. So in 38 million people, or however many people that are in the film industry, nobody had cracked more money than us for a film and video project on any crowdfunding site. Kickstarter, Rocket Fund, Indiegogo, we were the one. And then the film turned out really fucking fantastic. So we were like, man, TIFF is the place to premiere this. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be different. And then boom, no TIFF. And we were just like, oh. You should have been ready. I mean, it's a ginormous festival. They get 12,000 submissions. Your chances of getting in are so small. But I don't know. I thought we had everything in line. We'd broken a Canadian record. We had this incredible following. We had thousands of people who want to see the film. The Union is arguably one of the most successful cult classics to ever come out of this country. It only makes sense to do a big Canadian premiere at the follow-up. And it's a really good fucking movie. And then honestly, I'm just being, because we talk about honesty on podcasts, for a week it really hurt me, and it fucked with my head, where I started to think well, fuck, is it too long? Did we do something wrong? Is it could we have done something different? Maybe we should change it. And then thankfully, boom, we got into Rain Dance in the UK, which is that's the biggest, most prestigious film, that one. And then right after that, we got into Warsaw, Poland, which is ginormous international film festival. So then we were just like literally, it was so nice. It was like a week later. We needed that, just kind of or I needed that, just to be like, okay, we stuck to our guns. We did make a fucking good film, because 2 other super huge international film festivals have jumped on board and they like us. But it was weird. As much as you say, hit or miss, film festivals are just you try to say it doesn't bother you, but it bothered us. It did. It fucking really hurt me. I really started to panic. Fuck, my family's put all this money in. We worked so hard. Is the film not that good? Oh my God, maybe I'm just biased because it's my own movie. And then you get into these 2 other ones, and we're up for awards in both of them. And then you're like, oh, okay, it was just that festival. We didn't fit into their program, whatever it is. But I hope there's other filmmakers or artists that just realize, like, as much as you say that doesn't affect me and I don't care, it does, but just, you gotta just let it go, because it fucked with me for a good week.
Yeah, you got to stick to your guns. I think that it's you even see musicians a lot. It sounds like actually you talking about this reminds me of like even me when I was making music and actually I just released a song recently again, but finally, because it's been forever. Like you, it's like one of my passions. I never get around to, but I'm glad I finally got a song released. But it's the same thing. Like you can drive yourself crazy mixing things and cutting things and say that part's too long, that part's too short. Oh, maybe it's too long of a song. Like you see a lot. Like obviously back in the day, now with the internet and stuff like that, you can tell radio to go suck one. So you don't have to really deal with radio. Yeah. Now you can now there's bands that are selling out shows that never once or will never get played on domestic radio, and so it's cool because you can just do what you like, do what you enjoy, and you don't have to do that 3-minute song so it's played on the radio, because your chances of being played on radio are better if it's shorter, and but so I think that when it's all said and done, you want to look back and you want to feel comfortable with what you put out, regardless what everybody else's opinion is.
That's what we did, but of course you want to get into film festival and you want to get onto radio, because you also, with how much work you spent, those things still help you, right? Like to get the maximum exposure, right? Like that was the thing, is our distributor was saying that all their buyers, like iTunes and everybody else, were kind of like humming and hawing about the project. Like you tell them all the social media activity and they're like, yeah, we'll see if the numbers show up when the buyers. But all of them change their tune. They're like, but if you get into TIFF, now that's a different story, right? Like, but if you get in, so it was like, it really still affects you, even though it doesn't affect how good the film is. It affects how big the audience is and how much money you can make back. And, and for listeners that have heard me before, I'm not all about the money, but I've sunk a lot with my family in there, right? Where I want to at least make back what my dad has given me for both films to these things. So I've worked so fucking hard over 8 years putting into these that I just want him to be broken even. I don't need any more. I need enough to be able to still continue to make other films. But, and that's kind of where I was saying earlier with the downloading thing that gets frustrating too, is that like all these people will hit us up on Facebook and stuff and they'll be like, oh, when's it going to be on YouTube? And I'm like, dude, like seriously, like, and people are just so used to taking or getting stuff for free where they don't even think that's bad. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying that like the union would have definitely not even been noticed as much if it didn't pyrite and then people came to support us. But you got people like almost mocking you on my own sites, like, whoa, when's it going to be available for free? And I'm like, dude, I have worked so fucking hard. How about you go work for 1 full year and then you just give me your paycheck for the year? Well, what's wrong with that? You're like, people should be able to get things for free. Oh, no, dude, it's totally not the same. No, it's exactly the same, because this is what I do for a living, right? This is how I support my kids. I put my daughter in hockey, how I pay my rent is through this. This isn't a fucking hobby. So when you take it, especially from someone like me that really fucking grinds, and I don't have Ferraris and I barely make them. There's tons of months where we're struggling to pay groceries and stuff like that, just like everybody else in life. When you take it from me, that fucking hurts me, right? And then you come onto my own sites and you come bitch about like, when's it going to be free for me to steal it from you? Really, man?
Yeah, that's
really.
Well, the way
like,
I look.
When's it going to be free for you to steal it from me?
Well,
and then this is the plan, as I think I'd mentioned to you before, that we're doing. So Phase 4, and I got sidetracked because I do that.
Yeah.
With Phase 4's got the North American rights, right? But right now, international rights are free, and I'm battling hard with my sales agent because they own the rights to sell it internationally, and they want to do a traditional sale with like a theatrical and a VOD in certain markets that want it. And I'm arguing that, like, no, I'd love to do theatrical in Europe if we can get it, just because that's huge for any filmmaker. You want to see your film in the theaters, even if it's for a week or two. That's the biggest dream. Like, yes, we're on a bill. Our poster's there in the theaters. Awesome. But I'm arguing, saying, listen, I think it's more fair, because I get the audience where they're like, look, I don't want to pay $19 to fucking download it on iTunes. Then it takes up space on my computer. I'm going to watch it once. That fucking pisses me off. I get it. That's fair. But you have to charge that much on iTunes, because iTunes takes 35%, 5% processing fee. Your distributor takes 35%. So out of that $19, the filmmaker's lucky to make $1. But Vimeo offers 90% for the filmmaker, 10% for Vimeo. So my thought is that we do film festivals and tour the film and do the tug releases all over the United States, all the way to like November, December. Those are like the last festivals we're kind of waiting to hear. And at the last festival, and everybody's like, when's it going to be available in Jamaica? When's it going to be available in, Bermuda and all these small places, and in Belgium and in France and in Estonia? You know what? Next week, worldwide, it's available on Vimeo for $5. For the price of a cup of coffee or a hamburger, you can have a film that took us 4 years to put together, that's internationally acclaimed. It's already been selected to 5 international film festivals. That is a fair price. I want to make it so easy for people to get internationally, because if it's not, they're going to steal it. And people are going to steal it anyway. Some people just don't ever want to pay for anything. But I'd like to say those people that just be like, I can afford $5. And because they went this route and went to Vimeo and offered for a fair price of $5. And the other thing it does is usually when you do international, like especially for docs like this, they don't get it for like 2-3 years later, right? Because of like the windows, you have to go to different film markets, even present it to them. Then they take it. Then they're going to look at a marketing campaign that's going to take them 90 to 120 days. And then they're going to release it so it doesn't conflict with other titles. So other people are stuck waiting. They're like, fuck, I've been following this, on Facebook for 4 fucking years. And now I got to wait another 2 years. Of course, they're just going to go to Pirate Bay and steal it. But if we can say, no, right after the peak of our promotion, it is available worldwide right now for $5 everywhere in the world, other than the North American market. We have to block out because they pre-bought it, right? So we can geo-block those areas. But everywhere else in the world, $5, I'm actually thinking not only is it best for the audience, but I think it will be the most profitable, because I think our title, with us going with this marketing campaign, being like, listen, we want it to be fair for you and fair for us. We want to make it so easy for you to find for a reasonable price that you don't want to download it. You're like, you know what? Downloading and get viruses, BitTorrents, clog up my computer. Maybe it's a shitty version that's not actually HD. HD version, $5 everywhere around the world. You can order it on your fucking phone through Vimeo. I think that's fair both ways. I think that's fair for the audience, and I think that's fair for us.
Oh, absolutely. And the way I look at it is that if you really, really like something, then support it. And I mean, I do that with music. I mean, I don't steal any music, and I don't know it's because I'm a musician or whatever, but like if I really like an artist, I'm like, I will absolutely go out of my way. I still order CDs. I mean, I just because I like I just like the physical copy.
I stole music during the Napster age. I don't steal anything anymore. And the big reason for that is, though, now too, is it's so easy to just buy it, then stealing it is a fucking pain in the ass, because you get all these FrostWire, this and that, you're getting shitty versions, and there's this where, you know what, I can pick individual songs on iTunes, I can pick the ones I want, download the ones I want, it's just so easy that I'm at the gym and I'm like, oh, I'm bored of my music on my phone. Oh, you know what, I can just download 5 songs while I'm here. Bing,
exactly.
Bing, bing. I don't have to order the whole album that's bullshit. And that's what people are pissed off at, is that they go to certain platforms, they're like, listen, like you said, you'll still buy a CD. I will still pay $20 for a movie, but I want the whole thing. I want the DVD extra features. I want the case for my collection. If I'm going to spend $20, I want that, right? If I'm going to spend $5, even $8, right? If it just came out, I don't mind spending $8 to download it for 48 hours and it's gone if I want to support them, right? Like, and then get rid of it. But nobody wants to spend $19 just to have the film with no DVD extras on their computer that then takes up space. And after you have a few series and then, you get the message, your computer's almost full, start deleting stuff. Then people are like, fuck, I spent $19 to download this and it's taking up all this space, right? Which is fair, is for $5. Then you could even buy 3 fucking copies for your friends and push it out. Like, that's the way it should be done.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to do it. I mean, if you really, anybody who goes to you and just wants to steal it, like you said, if you care, and the subject matter too, I think it's so important, and I think the topics are important. I think that the whole movie, I mean, Graham Hancock, I mean, he was a great pickup, because the way he talks about consciousness and the just the how DMT and ayahuasca and can be, and Aubrey Marcus, Joe Rogan's good friend, he gets into it, and it's just like, it can really change your whole perspective. And just for example, Amber Lyon, who was just on Daniele Vignelli's podcast, and she's been on, all those podcasts. I mean, that changed her life completely, from where she was a journalist to now she's this, ayahuasca advocate who basically that's her whole life. And I think that there are a lot of benefits of it. And I think that it's an important topic. I think people have to realize the money in big pharma, the money in prisons and the unions for the prisons and all this stuff that want to keep the prisons full and want to keep these laws there, and the minimum sentencing and all these things, you know, and I think these are all important topics. It's more than just, hey, people want to get high. It's the fact that, you know, even people who are conservative and libertarian should be like, you know, it's about freedom. It's about small government not getting involved in your life, especially when something has been proven to not just not have negative effects, but have positive effects. And when you see, you know, documentaries like
the whole
yeah,
I could go on. We could have a whole nother podcast about that, but that's what my film talks about. This people are really hip now. Drug policy is being challenged all around the world from major political people. This isn't the fucking hippies of just the 70s anymore. These are former presidents. These are drug policy analysts. These are people saying, listen, this whole thing that we sold you in the 70s of 80s, that we need to protect you from yourself. Therefore, we're going to harm you by giving you a criminal record and putting you in a cage. I've now come to the realization that giving you a criminal record and putting you in a cage is far more harmful than what any drug itself could do. And it also makes people more dangerous. You know, where people, you'll hear some people, opposition still say, well, if we just made it way stricter on people, we'd get rid of the drug problem. No, you wouldn't. Try being a cop. If you make drugs to where someone that's caught for simple possession could serve a life sentence, how do you think it is when a cop approaches him? That is now human trying to survive against a human. All the labels of society fall apart, because if you're going to go to jail for life because you have a substance abuse problem, well, now that cop's life isn't threatened. It would be if it was me. It would be if it's 9 out of 10 humans, because now we are still just mammals trying to survive. And if you're going to put me in a cage with hardened criminals for the rest of my life because I have a health issue, because I'm addicted to a substance, that's going to be a life and death fight. And we've interviewed the cops. They've said that themselves. They're like, fuck, I don't want to be in that situation, right? Because a guy's an addiction problem, I have to approach him and damage his whole family and ruin everything because he was abusing a substance, that he had a mental health problem or whatever. There's enough punishment there already that you don't need to add punishment to that. And think, even the most harmful drugs, crystal meth, crack, heroin, cocaine, all bad drugs to be permanently addicted to, but not worse than putting you in a cage with a hardened criminal, right? Or then you can get some people saying, well, we don't actually put you in cages now. Oh, so you only give me a federal offense so I can never travel. I have troubles getting a job in the workplace, especially if I'm a minority with a federal offense. Good fucking luck. What do you, be honest about your application. I have a federal offense. Oh, well, not getting hired. How that damages society when people are like, well, how does this affect me? It doesn't affect me. I don't really care. No, you should fucking care, because that person now can't get back into the workplace because he made the same mistake that our last 3 presidents have made. He can't get in the workplace. He's draining the system, which costs you, the person who says it doesn't care. Every time someone goes to prison, that's taxpayers' dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
Every time someone can't get a job and he's going through all the political system, he's going through rehab and everything else, those are all taxpayer system. So what you want is a system that can rehabilitate people and get them back into the workforce, not a system that prevents them from getting back into the workforce. Because people say, well, you need to suck it up and do your life right. That's easy when you're raised on the other side of the fences and you come from a family that can bail you out if you get into some trouble, or if you got a DUI charge, or if you made a small offense, and they can do that. But if you come from the bottom part of society, or the more impoverished parts of community where you don't have the money to fight in courts, because courts are won on money. We've seen that. O.J. Simpson clearly killed his wife and he got off, right? And people get off all the time when they have money. Just like white collar crime, where they damage fucking countries, communities, everything, and they get a fucking slap on the wrist, which we bring up in the film, specifically the HSBC scandal, where they laundered billions of dollars for the cartel. So that's direct blood on their hands. Billions. That if you were to count billions and how many lives were lost, it's probably in the thousands. Nothing. Not one person goes to fucking jail. They get a $2 million fine or $2 billion. Oh, what's that?
Which
the HSBC. They wrote a check right after the court case. They're like, yeah, no problem. $2 billion. Here you go. We're out. Right? But the average other person that gets caught with a small bit of cocaine or a little bit of marijuana because they're smoking in their dorm room, federal record, prison time, fucks up their whole life. Not right. Yeah. And that's where everyone should fucking care. And that's why drug policy isn't just being challenged in the United States. It's being challenged in Europe, Australia, all over the world right now, because people now with access to information, with films, podcasts, research, Wikipedia, are like, this is bullshit. We don't need to be protected from ourselves. The best way to protect ourselves is for us to educate ourselves and make informed decisions on what's best for our body. We don't need a government to tell us which we should or shouldn't have, because if harms are going to be the reason why something should or shouldn't be illegal, I've said this before, then the North American diet needs to be prohibited tomorrow, because it is fucking super bad for you, highly addictive, puts tons of people into the medical system through heart problems, blood pressure, everything else. If strictly harms is why we should put legalities on something, then we need to outlaw just about everything in life. And I'm giving a quote that's in the opening of the film from Dr. Lester Grinspoon, professor of emeritus and psychiatry of Harvard Medical School. Brilliantly put, sums up drug policy in a nutshell. You can't live in a society that is free and be drug-free. You can't have them both. Period.
Yeah, well, there's never been a drug-free society ever. Also,
no, you cannot live in a free society and be drug-free. You can't have them both.
Well, no, and that's the thing. The problem with a lot of these rules and regulations is that everybody, it's like we have the right to pursue happiness, but your happiness is different than my happiness. So the thing is that, you look at like gun owners, it's like, oh, don't take away my gun, it's like Second Amendment, but then they're like, oh, lock up that guy smoking weed, that draft dodger, So it's like, wait, so you want small government? The way I look at it is that everybody, as long as you're not affecting somebody else's right to pursue happiness, everybody should have the right to do whatever they want to pursue happiness. Like we said in the beginning of this show, if you only live till 89 years old, you're here for, not a very long time. Unfortunately, you're
and this isn't Nintendo. You don't get a second, third try. There's one try. That's it. You get one shot. And we had a great quote at the end of the Union from a criminologist that said this in a really great way. We had this shot where you saw like a glass of whiskey, and he said, it's very interesting when you look at our culture, because it's like, a guy comes home, long day at work, he has a beer, a glass of wine, or a glass of scotch. It was a rough day. He's like, now, if him having that drink, is that a pursuit of pleasure or a relief of pain? Kind of tricky when you're thinking about it, because it could be considered both, right?
Yeah.
But society is willing to accept if it's relief of pain. If it's a pursuit of pleasure, that's where we seem to have an issue, right? It's like, oh, I'll accept someone drinking if it's relief of pain, or smoking weed if it's relief. But if it's pursuit of pleasure, I have an issue with that, right? And that's an interesting thing when you look at our society. And I remember that was one of those moments when we did the Union. I'm like, oh man, that's a really good fucking piece they put in there, that even when you watch it now, 10 years later, you're like, fuck, he was really onto something there. It's a powerful moment. And you still see that's what kind of goes back to what Graham Hancock talks about, right? Being, the war on consciousness, right? It's okay if we expand our consciousness in a pursuit to relieve pain. We're okay with that. But if we go to expand consciousness in pursuit of pleasure, which essentially could be to relieve pain, that's a problem. And that's really a complicated thing. And that's the thing is we're learning is that there's no one right way, right? Pain and the body is a fascinating thing. In medical, everybody's different, right? So opiates might work great for your pain, but not good for my pain, right? Whereas cannabis can work great for other people's pain and then not work for somebody else. So how can you say you can't do that, yet somebody else can take their opiate-based medicine, which is synthetic heroin for those that don't know. When you take a Percocet or an Oxycontin or any of those things, or a Vicodin, those are made from the same derivatives that you make heroin,
Absolutely.
Right? So when you take that, when you get your wisdom teeth taken out, or you go through a major injury and you break your leg, that's okay. You're taking synthetic heroin, and they're just putting a nice label on it. We go into detail about that in the film. But if somebody smokes weed to relieve their pain, well, he's just a fucking drug addict trying to get an excuse to smoke weed or ingest cannabis. No, that's not. His pain thresholds are different. His nerve endings are different. His DNA code is different. And cannabis, scientifically, even under the federal code of the United States, has been proven to work for pain. Right. Yeah. And that's why now the voting, like since we did the Union to now for medical marijuana, it's like an outstanding 85%. And, like there's no denying the United States government themselves have a federal patent on cannabinoids for medical use, yet they still classify it as a Schedule I narcotic having no known medical value. They're starting to look ridiculous at this point. Right. And that's what Sanjay Gupta and all these big people are starting to come out and apologize, saying we got caught into the same bullshit you did. We watched the same media outlets you did that, they're backed by Pfizer and these big companies, so they're going to tell you what they don't want you to hear. But now some of those same businesses are aligning themselves to make money in the cannabis game. So I guess overall, if it gets rid of the federal restriction, if some of those same companies are the ones pushing behind it, I guess it's a good thing as long as. But there's there's still lots, man. There's still, there's a young kid in Texas that's up for 99 years right now for selling marijuana cookies, right? Yet there's pedophiles and rapists that only got 4 to 5 years. So you tell me that doesn't affect you and you don't care about the cannabis situation? That's where I get frustrated. I'm like, really? So as a father, I have a daughter, and I have a little boy. A rapist and a pedophile gets 4 to 5 years, but some kid in college, 23 years old, is selling baked cannabis goods to other students that want them, and he's up for 99 years. The system is fucking broken, and we explain that in the culture why it is like that, because there's no money putting a rapist or a murderer in prison, but there's money putting a potential drug trafficker in prison because he gets seizures of assets. So the law enforcement has financial incentives to go for the wrong people. They go for the traffickers because they're the easiest ones to get. Because to a cop, one arrest is one arrest. Busting Jeffrey Dahmer and busting a small, impoverished kid in a poor society for a little bit of marijuana, you get the same pay as a cop. No difference. You don't get any more, other than a few people, and you might get some press for the Jeffrey Dahmer thing because he's a crazy fucking serial killer. But as far as payment and moving up to get a raise, one arrest equals one arrest. So who do the cops go for? They say, we're incentivized. We go for the small traffickers in possession. That's easy. We can go on the street corner and rival up 10 of them if we don't have our quota by the end of the quarter. But to go get a hardened criminal or a rapist or murderer, that's tough. You got to build DNA. You got to get warrants for wiretaps. You got to get all these things. Too tough. They're not incentivized financially to go after them. Yeah. And that's why, if you follow the money, like we're talking about the union, why the prison guard union is always in opposition of legalization votes and why these people are in there. Because they get paid by the states for people coming in, and 80% of people in the American prisons right now are still in for simple probation, simple possession, or breach of probation for drug charges, because they're so much easier. It's so much easier to catch them and put them behind bars. And
the thing is too, and in the prisons, they give out pharmaceuticals like it's with candy.
And there isn't a maximum security, not one in the country, in the United States, you can't get every drug that you went to jail for. They're available in every single fucking one. Well, they get them in there. They're not supposed to be, but you can still get them. So if we can't even keep drugs out of the most maximum security prisons in North America, how the fuck were we so delusional to ever think we're going to keep them off the streets? This is where we need to have rational approaches to drugs and look at the symptoms of drug addiction more, societal symptoms, rather than focusing on the causes of drug addiction all the time. Because that's what we'll look at. What about the children? What about the children? Well, how about we take money away from the DEA and start putting it into education, start putting more money into public education, start giving kids more options so that they don't have to fall down, bad societies. Joe Rogan's talked about this on a podcast all the time. Go to impoverished neighborhoods, bring them back, build them great parks, give these kids hope and opportunity, give them reasons to not want to go down the wrong path. Instead, they cut more and more education, more and more opportunity for kids, and you're thinking, suck it up, pull it up like I did as a capitalist and make it in this country. Yeah, that's great if you got good parents and good role models, but if you don't have good parents and good role models,
you're fucked.
You can put in the most perfect situation. If you don't have someone to bounce good ideas, like even look at, that's what we've talked about, how podcasts have helped us, right? There are other great people giving you ideas and inspiration to move forward and thinking outside the box and how to help yourself. And like Joe always says, don't surround yourself with fucking assholes. Put yourself around positive people. But if you're in a neighborhood where like you have an abusive mother verbally or emotionally, you have nobody, you don't have a good coach, you don't have good siblings, how the fuck are you ever supposed to pull yourself out of that? You won't, right? And then if the only people you see having success are people trafficking and pushing drugs, and they've got women, they've got power, they've got respect, well, of course young people are going to want to go do that. Why wouldn't they? I knew when I grew up in Kelowna, all the guys that were growing had everything that this material or capitalist society would tell you is success. They had $100,000 boats. They had big houses. Anytime the cops tried to get them, they'd win in court because they had $500,000 to be like, fuck, I'll hire the best lawyers. Oh, you didn't knock before you served me my warrant? That's a breach of the law. Fuck, case thrown out. Good luck. You always get the smaller guys that get caught with a little bit. They're trying to hustle. Those are the ones that get nabbed because those are the ones that can't defend themselves in the justice system. And it's garbage. The big guys are never getting caught. They're fucking usually trickling down all the way from the top. They're usually cowboys in the DEA, cowboys in the CIA, cowboys in government that want to make millions of dollars. And they're the ones you hear maybe once a year. And usually the only time they get busted is when they've ratted out another competitor that's doing the same thing. Otherwise, the general cops are not going to get them. They don't have the resources to.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important to realize that, I know a lot. I was just talking to a kid on a job site earlier this week where he was telling me that he's had 8 or 9 people that he went to high school, and he was like 27, 28. He had 8 or 9 people he went to high school with that have died from a heroin overdose. And I'm like, that's fucking crazy. And I'm like, how many of
holy fuck?
I'm like, and I'm like, how many of them were pill poppers that couldn't get it anymore? Because now it's much harder after like people realizing how big of an issue it was and how many were giving out, and Florida, the huge scam in Florida with just giving out another great documentary, Oxycontin Express, which is a great one by Mariana Van Zeller. And when people realized, that was a huge issue. Now, like he was saying, he's like, it was actually easier to get heroin on the street than it was to get pills. So everybody migrated who had, like you said, this addiction, this issue. Because it's funny how we look at addiction like alcohol, or we look at addiction, even if it's pharmaceutical pills, and we look at it as they have a problem. And then if we look at it as if you're addicted to cocaine, like you said, which is very similar to the pain killers that you get from a doctor, and we call them criminals. And it's like, wait, one's a criminal, one's sick. No, they both have the same disease, addiction. Yeah, exactly.
You talk to the good cops, people like my buddies, one of my best friends from high school is a cop. He said, man, almost every severe addict and stuff, man, they have mental issues. They're the ones on the street, like
self-medicating.
There's something. We explain addiction because we interviewed Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a world-renowned addiction specialist. He does TED Talks all over the world for thousands of people. He's fucking awesome. He has like a 10, 15-minute segment in like the first half hour of the film. And he breaks down addiction to you in a whole different way that we haven't even understood. We've looked at addiction entirely the wrong way for the last 4 decades. And when you really understand it and how it comes from the really young, impressionable age of your brain, where your brain gets shaped in certain ways that you then become more susceptible to being dependent to drugs in the later days, you start understanding. And Cara Santa Maria just talked about this on Joe Rogan's last podcast because she's a science a communicator, where she talked about that too, where these things that you do when you're younger, they can be, it's not always substance things, but it's like, divorce in the family, things like that. They'll actually, because your brain grows so much in your first 5 years that these bad habits or good habits or, bad parenting, whatever, shape the brain in such ways that cause your brain to be addicted when you get older in life. That's why a young person, or the same person, perfect example, why when 2 people can go in for a surgery, right? Say they're getting a surgery that they get put on an opiate-based painkiller to come off of. You and me could both go in for the same thing. I take the opiates for 2 days, can't fucking stand them, can't wait to get off. Boom, I'm done. Surgery, I battle through the pain. You get on them, but you can't kick it. You keep renewing it and renewing it and renewing it. And it becomes the crutch that you were always waiting for. And your mind, that is the piece you're like, oh man, this is almost like my antidepressant. Like, why didn't I do this earlier? Life is just much easier. I can adapt. I can accept things. That's because your brain is programmed differently than mine. So we can both be susceptible to the same drugs. We could even come from the both same economic and social background. But you had different experiences growing up with your family. I had different with mine, and the drug affects you differently.
Oh, absolutely.
That's why pharmaceuticals always say there's side effects, because they're always, when you're adding an outsourced chemical to your body, there's always going to be some kind of reaction. Some people it's positive. So for people that have depression problems, sometimes the right antidepressant works for them. Other times it will not, right? And that's the thing that we're starting to learn with addiction is like, wow. So I used to just point at somebody like, he's a fucking addict. And it was like, yeah, but there's a reason why that, and why, you could have been the same thing, but just your body and your brain reacts differently.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think when you see people who I mean, we all like to think that we all started from the same starting line, and then we made either good choices or bad choices, or we had a good work ethic, or we didn't. And I'm like, it's not that simple. There's people, like if I was that shithead who didn't end up having a good parents, good surroundings, good environment, didn't listen to a podcast that maybe sparked some new ideas and I had a different perspective on things, then I could probably be that kid, and that kid could be me, so it just...
I know for a fact I'd be a piece of shit. I was very lucky. I had 2 great dads. My biological father who passed away, and then my stepfather who married my mom when I was 2, have both been tremendous role models in my life. Good guidance, good male role models for an aggressive male, because I'm an aggressive guy, right? So it was good to like harness that, control myself, and then I had a fantastic boxing coach. which honed me and humbled me, and going into the sport of boxing, as you've heard Joe Rogan talk about lots. I think martial arts for males is so good, like just to humble their egos and to teach them that everybody's vulnerable, and that on your any given day you can have your bell rung, or you can roll with a jiu-jitsu 15-year-old that is just going to fucking make you feel like a child, right?
Well,
like,
it keeps your ego in check. Yeah.
Yes, so good, and that's healthy. It's healthy. Everyone, sometimes that ego can climb up, and it's good to get it smashed down to make you realize you're human. You can get hurt. You're not any better than your person. I can say, first of all, I've been, and yes, I work fucking hard. I even put creative hustler on my business card. But, if I didn't have the help I had from my dad and some of these other things, like, I couldn't imagine where I'd be. Like, I mean, I had my dad's invested in both my films. He's given me great guidance. I've had an excellent sales agent. I have a tremendous team. I have lots of things in place that if I didn't have the right moral upbringing from my family, I probably would have been a douchebag, and then my crew wouldn't have worked as hard as they would have. And like lots of things, like there's no one did it yourself. I've actually been preparing for like doing Q&As and speeches, and everybody's like, brilliant, you guys awesome. Thank you so much for your hard work. And be like, no, thank you guys. There's people I know I'm going to forget. Films are not made by one or two people. They're made by an army of people. Literally us with Kickstarter, an army of people that brought to this. Like, you have so many of those things throughout the time that help you. So to say it's any one thing it's just not the case, man. There's tons of, you have to have those good upbringing, those pieces. And there's a lot of people that come from shitty societies that don't have that. So they can't just pull up their bootstraps and pull life together because they don't have anyone there there's no support group. And unfortunately, brother, I got to cut this off because my daughter's hockey game is fast approaching here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's priority number one, man. I actually I got a kid on the way, my first one. So that's
oh really?
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm excited. I mean, it doesn't come with any instructions, so I'm definitely a little nervous.
I'll give you a little hint, and this may sound crude, but I'll tell you something that's very common for guys because I talked to somebody. I'm on to two, and who knows, there could be a third one in our future, but males, a lot of time when they're first born, you will feel, a lot of time it's very common to feel a little disconnected, right? You'll know it's your kid and you love it and you're going to get up and you're going to do and you're going to feed it and change it and do all that. But you're kind of like, people will talk to you and you won't be like, it's this amazing. I remember lying through my teeth and like, what's it like? You're like, oh, it's amazing. You're like thinking it's not fucking amazing. I don't get to sleep in. Baby has no personality. I just change shitty diapers. Like, oh, my life is miserable. The woman carried it for 9 months, so they have a different connection, right? They've been like bonding with it for 9 months. Absolutely. Going to have a more intimate, but by the time I found every 3 months was the turning point where it got more like 3 months, they start to kind of roll and crawl and they can see you and the colors are starting to hone in and then they recognize your voice, the deep tone of your voice or the tone of your voice because it'll be generally deeper than the females. You're like, oh, and then at 6 months, they start really getting a personality. Then at 9 months, they become this little thing. And then like a year, and then that's when you're just like, holy fuck, like I'll fucking bite somebody's ear off and like do it. Like you would do it there anyway. There's the protective instinctual, but where the male falls in love is later on is where you really, really, really get that bond and connect. Because it was funny. I said this to like some of my buddies when they had their first child, and they were just like, it was like the best thing that they could have heard because they thought they were fucked up.
They thought they were bad dads, right?
Just like I did, dude. With my daughter, at first I was like, okay, this is my daughter. I'm going to like earn for it. I'm going to protect it. I love her. And then I'm like, this doesn't do anything. And just, But now, I mean, dude, my daughter is fucking daddy's girl, man. Like it'll come and trust me, the relief I've seen in my guy friends, they're like, oh, I'm not fucked up. Like, yeah, dude, it's a little... And your life's a whirlwind because now your schedule is changing and you're getting up at different times and you're stressing about money and that'll work out too, man. That stuff happens because I was the brokest I'm getting to be just about as broke again, but I was the brokest I ever was then and made it work. So it all works out, but there'll be that little bit of, and I'm not saying there's nothing there for people that are like, what a, fucking insensitive prick. I'm not saying there's nothing there, but it's not like you would think. It's not like, when people say, oh, it's the most amazing thing, it's not. For the first 3 months, it's really not. It sucks balls. At about a year is when then it's the most amazing thing. When they start running to the door saying, daddy, daddy, daddy. Those are where like...
Yeah. Well, you can definitely see a difference because obviously we're just kind of in the outside looking in, and the female is actually a part of the process. So like you said, they can feel the kicking, they can, that they hear the heartbeat, whatever. So it's just like, it's definitely a whole different experience. So I can see how it takes time for us to connect with it and like feel like, okay, this is a part of us. And I'm sure as it grows and it starts looking more like you,
Yeah, you see it do things like you, and then people say, oh my God, it looks like you, and you see traits it does, or you'll see the way it walks. But all those come a little bit later, because in the first year they're just chubby little old men they look like, right? Even if it's a female. But as their legs and stuff start to develop and their arms, and you start saying like, oh, she totally has your calves, so she has my calves, she has your forehead, and she has your nose, my nose. It just gets in steps and steps, and that's the only bit of advice I can give you, man. The rest you'll just figure out, man.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, let's talk.
Like when I've said that to people look at, like, my guy friends are just like, oh my God, I'm normal. I'm like, dude, we all did it. It's normal. I guarantee if you Google it, it'll even say that. There's a slight disconnection in men versus women for the first little while.
That's a nice thing about having some honest friends, is that they'll bring some shit up that maybe some other ones don't want to bring up. And they'll be like, yo, I felt that too. I just didn't want to talk about it because I felt like a dude.
That's what literally my brother-in-law and one of my best friends from high school looked at me like I was an angel telling them a divine secret. They were like, oh, I'm normal, thank God, oh my God. And I was just like, dude, I felt the same way, right? And the way I pitched it to them is I said, I felt like this. Are you feeling the same? And they were like, totally, I'm feeling the same. And I was just like, dude. And then by my second kid, now I just tell young fathers when I'm like, first 6 months, it's going to be a little, especially first 3 months, you're going to be like, yeah. Like, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, just real quick before I let you go, the movie's coming out.
Okay, yeah. So Culture High is going to be out October 17th. It'll be available on VOD platforms all over North America. It'll also be, you can order it right after October 17th. You can use Tug and bring it to your own community, and I'll help you promote it with all of our social media sites to make sure that's a success for you. It will also be in New York, October 3rd to October 10th at the IFC Film Center Theater on West 4th, and it will be in the theaters at the Lamal's Royal Theater in LA from October 10th to October 17th. And that's on Santa Monica. And then we're looking to do film festivals and Tug tours all the way to like November, beginning in December. Then it will be available everywhere. I'm looking to release on Vimeo worldwide for $5. That's what I'm pushing for. My sales agent might battle me against that, but that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah.
And then January 13th, DVD with half an hour of extra features, including Lester Grinspoon's personal story, Dr. Donald Tashkin's lung study, a whole bunch of great stuff that will not be in the VOD October 17th. That'll come out January 13th.
Awesome. And people, Be Real from Cypress Hill is in it. Snoop Dogg's in it. I mean, there's tons of,
That's the little secret. Be Real has just he's going to host our LA premiere, which is an RSVP only that we're looking to do around October 10th or 11th. So stay tuned, because there will be a few giveaways on Twitter and Facebook, but you better be listening, because that's just going to go like that.
Nice. Well, hey, enjoy the hockey game, and thanks again, Adam. It's always fun, to catch up and talk, and we'll have to do this more often. Once
anytime, brother. Anytime you can hit me up, man. We'll make time for your schedule and my schedule. Yours going to get a bit tougher shortly, man.
Yes, it will. I'll have bags under my eyes next time you see me.
That's like permanently now. Let me see there.
Thanks, Adam. Have a good one.
And ruthless conspiracy. Descend to the news. Stifle dissent. Cover up our mistakes. Cover up our mistakes.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence. pot, down, and exhale. Those are the nations. The world is a college of corporations. The world is a business.
Destroys all great nations. What if the American